Nation, how's it going? This is Alex Yu, and you're watching the Marvel edition of the Ragin Nation show. This is just a web series where we're talking about all things matter to me in the world of Marvel films. This is episode number 113, and in this video, I'm going to do my spoiler talkback review for Captain America Civil War. I've already done a spoiler-free review, that's the previous video, and if you haven't seen the film and you want to know my opinion about it, watch that video, because I don't talk about any specific details, but now you have been warned. I'm going to get into spoilerific details, and we're going to talk about specific things that I really liked about the film, and also specific things that I thought could have been improved. So let's get right into it, and that is... Civil War was awesome. As expected, I really anticipated this to be an outstanding film, and it turned out to be just mind-blowing and exceeded my expectations. And there's a lot of things that I predicted would happen in Civil War and didn't happen. A lot of my predictions were thwarted. Anyways, one of the things that makes Captain America Civil War is that it takes the two best things from previous Marvel Cinematic Universe films and combines it together. And that is, it takes the tone of Winter Soldier, the grounded tone of Winter Soldier, and combines it with the spectacular superhero action of the Avengers, the one directed by Joss Whedon. And I feel that Winter Soldier and the Avengers are two of probably the best films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And they took those two properties, combined it, blended it together, and you have Captain America Civil War. And it starts off awesome. It starts off with a bang, because that opening sequence was just mind-blowing. Do you know a film called The Raid? It's this Indonesian martial arts film. It came out with the sequel. It's got some of the best action sequences ever put on film. I feel that the Russo brothers has crafted some really exciting action that is Raid level quality, especially with that opening sequence. We see all kinds of new things, from a Black Widow doing parkour and just fighting like several guys at once, and even taking on Crossbones. And those fights were just so raw and hard-hitting, and the choreography was just wow. I was really blown away by that. It also helps that they had the directors from John Wick, Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, on board to help out with the action choreography. So that was pretty awesome. I loved what Falcon did in the fight sequences and in the action. He's doing all kinds of acrobatic moves, and also he used his wings as a shield, and that was totally... that looked really cool. Using his wings as a shield, it covered him, and while he's blasting with his guns, that was really awesome. So right away in the opening sequence, they introduced a lot of new elements. I love that Scarlet Witch was harnessing her powers and knowing how to use her abilities, and then just using it to help out with the rest of the team. They work as a unit. And so what's really great in the opening sequence is that it shows that these new Avengers are working as a team. So really awesome. Just a great opening sequence. That leads me to talk about something else that was awesome. Black Panther. Black Panther had an excellent introduction. He owns every scene that he's in. From his very first introduction on the rooftop, the fight choreography and how he totally owned Winter Soldier, and to that high-speed foot chase where they were running faster than cars, and then he can retract and his claws come out, and he claws the everything that's in his way. That was so awesome. And you know what's really awesome? That part when he just sees a motorcycle coming his way. Oh, no, sorry, that was Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier, during the high-speed foot chase, sees a motorcycle coming his way. He throws the guy off the motorcycle, and then in the same shot, in a single move, he whips himself over the motorcycle, and then he rides on. It was completely flawless, and that was a crowd-pleasing moment. You can hear the audience just go, whoa. That was really awesome. Another new element that was introduced to the Marvel Cinematic Universe is, of course, Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland. And when we saw him as Peter Parker, he nailed it. And then when we see him as Spider-Man, he nails it. And like I said before in my previous review, every time they reintroduce Spider-Man in the first film, and then the reboot, and then now it just gets better and better and better. And this is, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man so far, because from what I've seen, I was completely impressed. And I'm surprised he has that much screen time. There was a fight between him and Captain America, and then also another really spectacular fight between him and Winter Soldier and Falcon inside a building. And I was just so surprised that he got to do so much as a supporting character. This was just supposed to be the introduction of Spider-Man, but yet he plays a really key role in this film. So really, really awesome stuff. And to top things off, there was the reference to Empire Strikes Back, where he takes out Ant-Man, or rather Giant Man. And that was just it was a feel-good moment. And that's something I completely didn't expect. I didn't expect Ant-Man to become Giant Man. I thought that Ant-Man was just going to do his thing as Ant-Man. I had no idea he was going to become Giant Man. Huge surprise. Once again, another crowd-pleasing moment. You can hear the crowd just go, wow, when that happened, because Ant-Man was able to take that technology where he was able to make things giant, and he applied it to himself, and then boom. Wow, that was really something else. One new character that was introduced is, of course, the villain. That would be Helmut Zero, aka Baron Zemo. Sorry, I said Helmut Zemo, not Helmut Zero, who is, of course, the Marvel villain in the comics, Baron Zemo. He didn't exactly become Baron Zemo yet. He's Helmut Zemo, his original self, before he becomes the alter ego Baron Zemo. But I gotta tell you, Helmut Zemo has probably got to be one of the best villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it has a lot to do with the fact that it was everything that we needed to see. A lot of the villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are weak. They just don't have that kind of presence. They're not memorable, and they're very thinly written. They don't have a lot of depth to them. We have Helmut Zemo, who is cold, cunning, and calculated. You understand his motivations, and to top things off, he's successful. He's successful at what he does, and that is making the heroes go up against each other, and he did it without a costume, and he did it without a mask. I'm going to put him right up there with Loki as one of the best villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if not the best. He's exactly what we needed to see, because, the Russo brothers didn't want to make him the main villain. After all, even though he is the main villain, but ultimately it's the heroes that got to settle their differences, and that was what the main conflict was about, and he was responsible for all of that. So, like I said, cold, cunning, and calculated. He had it all down. All right. So really, really awesome stuff. Let's talk about some of the comic relief. Of course, leading up to the film, the Russo brothers were saying that there's a lot of comedy in this film. It's possible this could be the funniest Marvel film yet in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I completely disagree. It's really not that funny. It is funny in the right moments. The comedy beats were perfect, and they were completely appropriate. You have little bits of comedy thrown in here and there, but it's very, very subtle, and it works. It's not like the Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, where Joss Whedon throws in a lot of comedy in all sorts of places. It's also not as funny as Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy, where the comedy plays a very important part in the film, because it really is an extension of the characters. This was done very cleverly. And really, the only moments where you see a lot of comedy is when they bring in Ant-Man and also Spider-Man. And the comedy works for those two characters because that's exactly what those characters are like. So the comedy totally works, and by no way do I believe that this is the funniest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's funny, but it's not funny like Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man funny. It's comedy that really, really works and is appropriate for the characters. So I really love that. I also love the inclusion of General Ross from The Incredible Hulk, played by William Hurt. And it's not, I don't like it, I don't like it because of the fact they brought in an older character, like from the previous films. I like it because they brought in a character that is also against the idea of these superheroes that are not kept in check. It's completely appropriate for him to come back in Civil War, and by bringing him back, you introduce, or rather, you reintroduce a very familiar face, and you know the backstory of his character. It totally works for the Civil War story, so that was excellent. I love the way they handle the fate of War Machine. As you know from the trailers, it shows that there could be a death in the team, and that being War Machine, because you see what happens when Tony Stark has him. He is there when War Machine is on the ground, and we're trying to wonder, did he die? Like, what happened? Who shot him down, right? And the whole time I was thinking, who's gonna be that character that does that to him? Who is going to be the character that does him in? And it worked out to be Vision. And Vision's not even human. He was AI. I mean, he is AI, and he made a poor judgment call. And it was like poetic. It was like poetry about the fact that it ended up being Vision that took out War Machine. Because had it been like any of the other characters in Team Cap, it would have been so personal. But they made it work. They completely made it work, having it Vision. I was completely, I completely unexpected. I didn't know that was going to happen, and it was a very pleasant surprise in a way that it worked out the way it worked out in the end, because, you know, you can't blame the guy. He's AI. What are you going to do, right? Take him apart? So that was quite impressive in terms of the writing. Which leads me to talk about the big battle. The battle in the Tarmac and IMAX. The actual Civil War. I was blown away by what I saw. I loved what I saw. It was really exciting, really, really intense. But you know what? I felt uncomfortable about it. And that uncomfortable feeling is actually a positive thing. The reason why is because this is the 13th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We've had all these films to build up towards this film, Captain America Civil War. And throughout those films, we've come to learn to know these characters, care for these characters, love these characters. And because of that, when we see them fight, it actually is quite heart-wrenching, kind of gut-wrenching. It made me feel quite uncomfortable because they were really going at it. Some of them were pulling back their punches, but at the end of the day, you know that they had to pick a side, and that feeling alone was very effective. It was very effective on the part of the Russo brothers, because as directors, they did an excellent job in trying to convey that feeling. And if I felt uncomfortable, then what they did was very, very effective. And it made me feel for these characters. Like, I didn't want them to hurt each other. And because of that, you know they did a better job than what Zack Snyder did with Batman vs. Superman. And Batman vs. Superman, all I was watching them do was punch each other and waiting for them to just finish breaking things and hitting each other. I was thinking, when are they going to stop doing this, because this is getting redundant. With the fight in Civil War, it was spectacular, but it was also emotionally stressful. So what a great scene, and such great direction. They really pulled it off successfully in making it more than just a big fight scene. It was an emotional moment, actually, if you really take a look at the bigger picture. Speaking of which, speaking of emotion, this got to be Robert Downey Jr.'s best performance as Tony Stark, because you could see a lot of the performance in the past was just, him being Tony Stark. We've seen this sort of thing before, but now we see intensity, anger, and I guess vengeance, something we've never really seen before. And he's looking at Captain America with these vengeful eyes, and he really means business. So I gotta say that this was the best performance from Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Let's talk about some of the things that I thought could have been improved, and it prevents it from getting a perfect score. I gave it a 9.75. So what is that 0.25 about? It's about the lack of the motivations, about why Hawkeye decided to choose Team Cap, or why Vision decided to choose Team Stark, or why Scarlet Witch is on Team Cap. You know what? They could have done a little bit more with that. I think it's just suddenly all of a sudden Hawkeye is there to rescue Scarlet Witch. And I understand they have a little bit of a bond, but still, you know, Vision and Scarlet Witch have a bond as well. And so right away you wonder, like, you know, what's going on here? How come they decided to choose which team? I mean, there's a brief explanation for it, but I thought it could be fleshed out a little bit more. So that was a little bit, you know, I felt that it was a little bit rushed. Moving on, let's talk about Crossbones. I think they handled Crossbones perfectly, but I also felt that I was feeling a little bit disappointed that means that we're not going to see any more Crossbones. But however, I feel that Helmut Zemo would have been is a way better villain than Crossbones because of the way they handle him. Crossbones, at the end of the day, if they made him the main villain, they would have made him kind of like a Bane type character, and that is, you know, Bane is awesome in Dark Knight Rises, but at the end of the day, Crossbones is Crossbones. He's you know, he's a skilled fighter and he's a great marksman and he's great with weapons, but at the end of the day, he is just that type of villain. So, you know, I probably don't want to see another Captain America brawl with a villain. We've seen that in Winter Soldier. If they brought in Crossbones versus Captain America, you know, as the main villain, then we would end up seeing the same thing. So this was more of a psychological battle, and it totally worked a lot better. So Crossbones, I love the way they handled him. It's unfortunate that we won't be able to see more of him. Frank Grillo did a great job, but the way they handled him here is appropriate for how Civil War turned out. So that was fine. And finally, last thing I gotta mention that I find is a slight flaw about this film is that it does not work on its own. Captain America Civil War is the 13th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you know how they're all connected. That's 12 films worth of material before leading up to this big, in some ways, a finale. This is the start of Phase 3, but there was Phase 1 and Phase 2. And even if you didn't watch all 12 of those films and you just watched Captain America, the First Avenger, and Captain America, Winter Soldier, it isn't enough. You had to have watched at least Iron Man 2, so you know who Black Widow is, Avengers, so you understand, like, you know, this is the whole team, this is the Avengers, Avengers Age of Ultron, so you know what the Sokovia Accords is, and also Ant-Man, so that you know who Ant-Man is because he appears in the final battle. If you didn't watch any of those films, then unfortunately you will be a bit lost. There are characters like General Ross, who appears in The Incredible Hulk, the second film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think a lot of people have forgotten about him, but them bringing him in has a lot of backstory to it, and there's a lot of backstory to all these other characters that are in this film. If you know who they are, you have a better understanding of who they are to each other. And that's a very important thing because, like I said before in my my spoiler-free review, this film is about relationships and friendships, makeups and breakups. And the fact that they're fighting really has a lot to do with what has happened in the past. And if you don't know anything about that past, then this film will be less effective in really conveying the story to you. So if you want to get the full experience, you gotta watch the previous 12 films. If you haven't watched those films, or at least 6 of them, you know what I'm saying? But if you haven't watched those films, you won't enjoy it as much as someone who did watch those 12 films. You will still enjoy it because at the end of the day, this is a very good film. It's an outstanding film, as a matter of fact. But on its own, it doesn't work as well compared to if you have watched all the other films. So that's all I gotta say in this video. I mean, okay, let me give you an example. Star Wars The Force Awakens works on its own. You don't even need to watch the previous films to enjoy Star Wars The Force Awakens. It's just a good film, no matter what. It's a great film. But, of course, if you watch the previous films, you know, it'll help you enjoy it more, but it's not a prerequisite. Star Wars The Force Awakens is the start of something, like, completely new. So that's why I feel that a Civil War, on the other hand, you know, there's a lot going on, and a lot of what is going on, it won't be completely understood if you don't know what happened in the previous films. But that's all I really got to say in this video. I've mentioned a lot of positives. I've mentioned a couple of negatives that don't really quite affect the score. I gave it a 9.75. It's missing 0.25 from receiving a perfect score. It is a near perfect film, a damn near perfect film. But I still got to say that no matter what score I give it, It is the best film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the Russo brothers did a phenomenal job because they combined what was the best thing about Winter Soldier with the best thing about the Avengers. Put them in a blender, and you have a Captain America Civil War, and it is close to being a masterpiece. Close masterpiece, all right? Very, very close. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I talked about a lot of stuff. Why don't you let me know in the comment section what you think could have been improved, if anything at all, or otherwise, let me know what is your favorite scene in the entire movie. That's going to be a tough one for me. Of course, there's the big Tarmac battle, but I gotta say that opening sequence was like, wow, they started it off with a bang. And I've only seen this film once. I actually want to go watch it again to take it all in some more. Anyways, that's all I got to say in this video. As always, if you enjoyed this review, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation. Also follow me on Twitter, Ragin Nation. My name is Alex. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. Story. Now, I'm not going to, give you the details of the story away. I'll just tell you that this isn't like your standard superhero story.